All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. So first of all, thank you folks for tuning in to this month's session of Tableau Live. My name is John Rosales. I am Director of Education at Boulder Insight. And joining us will be Chris Cox, our founder, good guy to know, and one of our Tableau consultants. He is not currently in the session, but he will be joining us shortly. In the meantime, what I'd like to do is get into the agenda, some of the stuff that we're going to be covering today, and specifically the questions that were submitted previously. So for those of you who submitted questions, thank you. Um, so first, we'll start out with some details about how the session is going to go. I'll get into those submitted questions and or topics. We'll then open it up for Q&A. And then there are just some short announcements at the end before we close out the session today. So first, welcome again to the session. You may be new to Boulder Insight. This may be your first time tuning in to Tableau Live. So first, we want to welcome you. And second, we want to get an idea of why it is exactly that you're attending. You might have heard about it from another Tableau user. It might have been from the community group that you might be a part of. And then in particular, a little bit more about your specific use cases. If this is your first time, um, how exactly did you hear about us? And if not, what has you returning? And then probably another piece is that is pertinent that'll give us some context as to how to explain certain things are related around how long you've been using Tableau. Okay. So I'm just going to open up the floor to anyone. If you wouldn't mind introducing yourself and just sharing that information, that would be great. So feel free to unmute yourselves and introduce.
I'm Sharon Lee. I work for a Community Health Center network. And I've been with the company for 23 years, and we've been using Tableau for um, probably I know it's more than maybe 10 years. So I've gone through different versions, but this is my first time on this live session here. I've also been to about 4 or 5 of the different conferences in various places.
Excellent. And was there something specific that had you attracted to the session, Sharon? Was there anything
I
in
haven't
particular?
been to any conferences like since pre-COVID or did anything, and we're going to start using Tableau even more than what we have been using. So I just thought I'd kind of see what's new, what's out there since we've been using it. I just haven't done the educational part.
Got it.
Googling myself. So just
Sure.
that.
Well, first, welcome, Sharon. Secondly, you mentioned about pre-COVID.
Mhm.
That was actually how Tableau Live came about because of the fact that we were limited in being able to conduct training live, to actually attend conferences. We wanted to make sure that there was a way to be able to reach out to customers and still provide support in the way of, the technology. And that's actually how Tableau Live, these monthly seminars, came up. We were trying to provide that as a resource to our customers. So, Sharon, thank you. Welcome.
Thank you.
Who'd like to go next? Anyone? Bueller? No? Okay. Go ahead, Fernando. Thank
Hi,
you.
thanks, John. Hi, everyone. Um, I'm just, still a current user of Tableau with my company. I'm at Major Lindsay in Africa. I've attended these sessions in the past, and they've been really helpful. So, anytime I have the availability to jump in and ask a question, I like that you guys put these together.
Excellent. And just out of curiosity, Fernando, for other folks' context, how long have you been using Tableau?
For about 2 years now.
2 years. Okay. Excellent. Welcome, Fernando. Thank you. Who'd like to go next? Especially if it's your first time with us, we want to get some context for you.
So, my name is Jessica Becker. I work at Methodist Healthcare Ministries. This is
Okay.
the first Tableau Live I have ever joined. I've been using Tableau for about a year and a half.
Excellent. Welcome, Jessica. And
Amber. Oh, hi. Sorry. I'm Amber.
no, go
not
ahead.
not new to Tableau Live. Been here a couple times and been using Tableau for about 2 years.
Yeah, I was going to say thank you, Amber, and Jessica. Welcome. Um, if for the sake of time, if you'd like, you can just go ahead and use the chat as well. Just give us some context for you, so that we can move on. Again, if this is your first live, what brought you, and if it isn't, what had you come back, and how long you've been using Tableau. Okay. All right. In the meantime, let's go ahead and move into some of the submitted questions or topics that have been brought up. So when you register for the session, we've incorporated a form now that allows you to post a topic or a question that you would like us to address. By the way, you don't have to wait for a Tableau Live session in order to submit those questions. We have a questions queue that's available, and we will sometimes use that accumulated list of questions as topics that we will cover in Tableau Lives. So again, you don't necessarily have to wait, but it is available to you. So the first question is centered around call center data. It was submitted by Tom. It's actually in two parts. Converting decimals into time and format correctly. So I'm assuming data is being collected about the call volume that's coming through the call center, and it's probably in numerical form in the form of a decimal. And now that wants to be converted into, Tom wants to convert that into time and have the format correct. And then in addition to that, aggregating that data by agent or job skill. Right. I'm going to pass this over to Chris. Chris just joined us, and he didn't get an opportunity to introduce himself. As I mentioned, Chris is one of our principals. He is our one of our lead Tableau developers, and is going to be addressing this question. So, Chris, take it away.
Yeah. Sure. So first off, is the person who sent this question in on the call?
I'm here.
Do you have somebody?
You might not be able to hear him, Tom. He is here, Chris.
Okay, Tom. I just had a question about how we could kind of did this or something similar to this a few months ago. John, can you turn on sharing for me, please, so I can share my screen? Looks like I'm gonna knock you out. There we go. Yeah, we did something like this a few months ago, where if you just want to convert hours to or just a number to hours and minutes, that'll do that for you. I can show you that calculation, but I just want to see how your number comes in. Do you have any? Is it just like a whole number, then a decimal is like the seconds? Is that what it is? So is it counting up minutes?
Yeah, it's coming in as a decimal, like 241.30.
Okay.
That's an easy one, but
okay, perfect. Let's just do that one then. So let's just do that. So create calculated field. I'm just going to go time as decimal. Okay. So 231.5, or you see that right? Point 5.
that's fine.
Yeah. Okay. So what you would do with that is so one, it's really easy to do. If you get the so it's actually minutes, right? So this is the number of actually minutes, and then this is the seconds. Is that correct?
That's what it looks like. Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So all you'd have to do is so the first piece I would do, and I've already got some of these done because I think we did it already on one of these. You're going to you take the minutes. You're going to term it. We just kind of do it from scratch off the one we just made. Time value. So like I did that one. Let me do it as a parameter instead. So I'll do it as a float. 231.5. Okay, so that way we can change it. So oops, rename. Time decimal. Okay. Cannot spell today. I'm getting a interesting rename. Okay. So now we have that. I'm going to create a calculation. Looks like I'm on number 12. So I'll kind of keep this going. So I'd first start out with like hours. So hours from decimal. Well, I guess you could actually have that, right? So 231 is going to be over a well, let's just do it. Let's just do how we got it here. So we go, so minutes, we're just going to take off the actual decimal, right? So we just use your time decimal. So we just turn it into an integer. So that's just going to strip it off. So now if I pull in 12 to here, I'll do it as a minimum. And actually, I can just do it as a discrete just so we can see it. So 231. So that's the number of actually minutes. So that now from this, all we want to do is actually divide that by actually 60 to get hours. Right? So that's going to give us 3.8885 is what we get from that. So then we say, okay, then we want to turn that number into an int as well. Okay. So that gives us, so there's 3 actually hours. Okay, so that's our first start. Then we could duplicate that and say, okay, if we take the other actually side of it, so we say in this one, we'll take off this int, and we're wanting to find the actually decimal in this one. So we're going to find the decimal in this calc. That's going to give us the location of it. What have I done wrong? Too many. Find. What's wrong with my find? Oh, I did it backwards. You got to look at the string first, and then the kind of forget that sometimes. And I think it's on the opposite inside of Excel. Should be a comma. Okay. And okay. So that should have worked. Missing an operator, 1, 2. That should work. What's wrong with that? Fine. Int. That one. Why does that not work? Oh, I make this a string now. So I want the int to kind of get actually rid of my whole decimal. It should work. What is wrong? In calculation says it's not liking that. That should be correct. Did I add this at the wrong spot? All right. What am I doing wrong here? All right. See, this is why you do this stuff live, because if it breaks, it breaks. All right. Let's start over. So that gives me. This is my hours. What did I do wrong here? Time decimal divided by 60. Isn't that what we did in the first one? I'm just going to get rid of this one. I'm going to dupe it. Delete. Okay. All right. So this one we have in here. I'm going to change these to a dimension, so we don't have to keep doing that. All right. So this one gives me the 3. But if I take off this outer int, that should give me 3.885. Okay. So then from this one, I want to, I'm just going to wrap this with a string just to make sure it's a string. And it shouldn't change anything. Oh, it really gets it long out there. So that's pretty interesting. So, so what I need to do here is I need to say I want to find in that string, I want to find the period. And it's going to tell me where it is. So now it's going to give me a number of 2. Okay. So then I know I need to say, okay, now I found that the string is in 2, or the decimal is. I want to get the length of the entire field. That's going to tell me how long it is. Oops. Can't make that a dimension anymore. Well, here, that's just going to give me the length of it. And then what I need to do is I need to say, I want to go right of this entire string, right of that. And I want to go I think I did this wrong anyway. I want to go the length is going to be the length of the entire string minus the where I actually found it. Does that make sense? So that should give me just the stuff that's on the right hand side of the decimal. Does that all make sense? I know it's kind of a lot there, but does that make sense? What I did
So far, yeah.
So now I've got the 3, and I've got the 0.8885. And then we also have the other 0.5 on the other end. So this is actually minutes. So hours and then minutes. And so just like we did with the other one, so now we can turn this into an int, and we want to divide by 60 again. Okay, and I'll put it back as a string just so it'll show up. str. And so now that should be, can't divide by that. Int whole thing. Maybe I did. Let me back it up one. So that's about far enough back. All right, let's try it again. Edit. Okay, so all right, that gives me a string. So if I want to turn this into like an integer, and then I want to divide that by 60, and then I want to turn that back into a string just so we can see it. There we go. So that's a lot of minutes. Maybe it'll be, that doesn't seem right. 100. That's a lot. That's a lot of minutes. Pretty sure that's right, but that doesn't sound right. Let's just go back again. All right, so that's way too long. So that's part of the problem. I think it's just this whole thing is, because really it's just actually 85, I think is all it is. So 200 and, because if you do the math, it's going to be, we need to get it down to seconds. Actually, that's another way to do it. We try that. You think about days. So there's another, we should have worked on this earlier today. I think it's because it's so long. I don't know why it's that long. It gives us the 0 there. That can't be right.
Chris, just for clarification, so that 85 digit, that is the actual decimal. That's not the fraction of the hour, right?
Well, it should be, because let me pull in the time decimal in here. So I guess I can't do that. May be part of it. Let's change this to a instead of making this a float, I'm going to make this a string, and I'll break everything. But so the time decimal should be 231. Okay, so that's what we started with, and then we divide by. Let me step this out. So, all right, let's look at 12 again. Or yeah, so hours. Okay, so edit on this guy is we take our time decimal and we divide by 60 to get the number of hours. So there's 3 hours inside of that, which that makes sense. And then that should give us, if we don't do this part, we get it's actually 3.85 hours. So some reason when I do the conversion, it adds that long string on there, because really all I want is 85. I don't want all that other stuff. So, but I think it's got to be that way. So I think maybe I just need just the 85 is what the problem is, but it should, let's do this. Instead of doing the length, I'm just going to do, let's do this. All right, I'm gonna make this actually more too simple. I'm gonna get rid of this one. Okay, so I'm gonna take our hours, duplicate, edit. I'm just gonna go down to min, and still do the same thing of find. You want to find the decimal. Got to make this a string. Okay. So I want to find the decimal in that. So that gives us our number. So that's going to give us where that is. And then I should just do why that does not give us do not know why that's not giving us the whole thing, but that should be it though. Okay. So I want to find the decimal, and then actually let me do this. Let me before I do that, let's see what the length of this is. Just because I want to, that should give us hours, 7 minutes, street. Then that may be what's happening. 18. So that still is pulling in. Whenever I do something there, it's making it way longer. When I convert it to a string, it's making it longer.
Yeah, for whatever reason, instead of just 2 decimal places, it's making it 18 digits long to the right of the decimal.
Let's try this then. Let's try round. We'll round this up to 2 places. Am I missing it? Round int. Come on. Well, the good news is this isn't super simple. That's kind of the good news is you probably shouldn't have got this one off the bat. Okay, so integer turns into a string. I've got 2 things there that I don't need. So let's do that. Okay, so that's okay. And then I want to, I got to round out here. Okay. All right. So that, I got to do that. That's what I got to do. Okay. So round of all this 2 decimal places. And then we got to turn it back into a string to get the length of it. So that should give us a 3 if it's right. 1. Oh, 18. Let's just take that off. You got to turn it back into something. For some reason the float is giving us that other number. I don't know how to get there unless we just assume it's oh, hold on. Got it. Okay. So all right, here's what we do. So we get the 1. So the 1 is going to be the number of places to the left of the decimal. And so we know we just want two more, right? So now I know that the total number should be 4 places long, right? So now I should be able to say, should be able to say, right of this entire string. I'll put that here. Right of this whole string. So I got 1 out of that one, and we'll do right 2. I'm gonna do right 2, but no, I'm not doing this right. I think. All right, left. All right, think. Still there, one. Okay. So that gives me the length of that. That's correct. So that's my one. But then I want to say 1 plus 3. No.
Chris, can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah.
Tom, do you need to actually have the separate values in hours and minutes? Do you need different units of time? Or can it be one indexed time? In other words, can you have everything in minutes or in hours?
It's everything is coming in hours, minutes, and seconds because it's call center data. So time to talk, time to resolution, that kind of data.
That totally makes sense. Let me do this. Let me kind of work on this after the call because you guys need to watch me do this. Once I get it right, I can actually send actually to you. It's just going to take some going through, and I'll clean it up and make it nice and neat and explain it all to you.
Yep, understood.
Okay, sorry
guys.
this is a tough one. It's weird because of the rounding. I don't know why it's doing that.
Yeah,
it's extending the string out. That's really
strange. It isn't a normal behavior that we see. So
yeah, I've never seen that. So anyway, but all right, let's move on to something else. And then your other question was, what was the other question around this?
It was aggregating data by agent and job skill. So if you're going to work on that to get the actual number, you might want to actually. He was just interested in aggregating it by agent. So those time frames, whatever they are.
Yeah.
Tom, I'm assuming that you're like talking about one metric per agent or job skill.
It's a string of metrics. So as long as I can figure out the conversion, the next step is to aggregate it by agent.
Yeah. Got it. So would you want to? So would you want to add them all up?
Yeah. So it's a weekly aggregation.
Yeah. So you're going to do, so probably what that's going to be is you're going to write like a fixed calculation. So I don't have agent in here, but let's say we have customer name or ID. So you want to do that plus also your actually date. So you're like the order date that you have, or your week, maybe whatever date you're using.
Yep.
So you want to do those, and then you're gonna sum up this actually calc that we come up with. So for every call, you're gonna have a time, but you probably want to sum those up first, and then actually run this on it because you're wanting to see how much talk time they had, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So you would just sum up all their numbers, then you would do all this stuff with it. So instead of just having one value, you're like, so we had time decimal. So you're going to sum that up. So if I had this time decimal here, then I would do that first. That's going to give me the total for every single person, right? Because it's consecutive string. Then all my other calcs, all these things I was building would actually go off of actually this one, not that one, because that's going to go by row, and then you'll just end up summing this whole thing up. That'll give you one number per agent. Does that make sense?
Yep, got me further than I was, that's for sure.
Okay, all right.
Excellent. All right, so we're going to move on to the next question. This one was submitted by Fernando. How do you calculate win rate percentages? Is there some context for this one, Fernando? Could you give us a little bit of background on this one?
Yeah, so I was just curious to see, like, if, for instance, one of our recruiters, their BD, we track it, their business development in terms of, new jobs that are coming in, if whether or not they were able to successfully win those and close those, and based on how many they closed, how many they won, kind of how would I track that?
Okay. I'm gonna throw this one again back to Chris. If Chris, you're okay with that one. So you have different classifications of, I guess, the jobs or projects or whatever the dimensional category is, and you're just trying to calculate the percentage associated with that. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay. Chris, any thoughts on this one? I think you're muted.
Sorry.
There you go.
No, I thought this is the one that you had a lesson on, no?
I actually have for the next question. It's actually for the checklist. So,
Sorry.
if you want, let me take that question first.
Well,
And
I can tell you this one. So,
okay,
you want a, let me make sure I understand it. So you want a win rate percentage. So it would just be so I'm assuming you have a number of deals, and then you're going to win some actually percentage of them. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So it would just be is it by person, or is it just a total?
By person.
Yeah.
By person and by department, but yeah, by person.
Yeah. So here, let's just make something up real quick. So it would be so it's kind of the same thing, is that you would have oops, is this the one? No, I'm the wrong thing. Let's go here. Okay. So you would have you'd have in your data set, you'd have like all these different deals, right? Let's just say I have these like orders. So these are going to be either, let's just say that we have some order. Let's do like a ship mode. So we'll say that if it's, so we'll say if it's actually delivery truck, it's one. So we'll just make we'll just make something up here. Let me do this real quick. I'm just going to combine these together. Get your group and rename. What am I doing here? That alias. So we'll call this lost, and we'll call this one. Okay. So now I have, for every deal, I have I can tell you whether it was one or lost, and I'll make it be one or the other. Some of these have multiples, but it doesn't matter. So what you would do is, now I have those. So these orders, then I have them by people, right? So I can tell you which people had which ones. So now I want to calculate. Okay, give me the total of like every actually person. So I'm going to do. So I would do a total orders, total deals by person, we'll call it. And then I just want to do a fixed calc by customer name in this one. And I want to count D, the different things we have, right? So that's going to give me a number. So for every person now, so come on, and discrete, just so you can see it. So now we should get threes down the thing, right? So threes, this guy's 1, 3, this person has 6. So now once I have that, I can take this part out. So now I have a total of orders per actually person. Put total of like deals, right? So now I want to say, okay, how many of those deals were actually won or lost? So then I do the same thing. I could do it like this, actually. It'd be really easy. We could pull in, what did I do? My group. I did a ship mode group. So now I can tell you we've got multiples here. So the easiest way to do it is to do this, and I'll put the total deals in my text. So now I have this, and then I could do I could take this field, and I could say a quick table calculation of percent of total. So I'm going to compute using Table across, that should have worked. Why did that not work? It's got to be continuous, maybe? Shouldn't matter. Why does it give me 100%? Why is it not total deals, edit. Customer name. Let's do ship mode group as well. There we go. So, so this guy has a 25% win rate. This person has a 75%. Right. And if you wanted to do it for the entire company, just take that out, and then that's gonna tell you.
Got it. And so then we had to add that ship mode group to that fixed calc.
Well, you're gonna have. I mean, this will, yeah.
Right.
So yeah, total deals by person. I had to add that in to be able to do it. I shouldn't call it ship mode. I'll call it something else.
Right. So in my case, it would be like whatever that like that status that's grouping all those the win loss.
You got it.
Yeah.
So yep. Total deals by person. There you go. And then the same thing. You've already got it by person. So if we said, okay, we wanted to add in here like extra region, right? So I can break this out by actually region. So now I could take out the people, and it should give me percentages by region because we're already going down to the people. Because I think you said you had a department as well, right?
Yes. No, that's perfect. Can I take a quick screenshot of that field?
Yeah, sure. Total. There you go.
Got it. Thanks, Chris. Super helpful.
Yep, no problem. All right, John, you want to do the next one?
Yeah. Let me jump in here. Let me go back to the question. So the last question that was submitted, actually, it was a more of a topic that was submitted by Jessica, is a checklist of things to triple check before publishing. Before I get into it, Jessica, again, could you maybe give us some context? Was there something in particular that you were encountering, or has this been an ongoing issue for you and your team?
This is honestly just something I thought that maybe I should develop for myself. And then I thought, no, I should ask people with more experience. I find myself after I hit publish that I have to go back and edit multiple times, just like tooltips, especially. But I was just wondering, like, what do you folks always look for before you hit publish?
Yeah. So there are particular knowledge articles that Tableau publishes, and so I've actually taken sort of the best practices of all of those and combined them into this basically a top tens list, which I'm going to show here. But the one thing I will say is that what you're experiencing with regard to iteration, like even after you publish, you think it's in its final state, there's always something that we can do to improve upon it, right? Because the audience may change, the data may change, the context in which we're presenting that data may change. So there's a number of different things, but these are sort of top 10 list of things to consider when publishing in relation to best practices, if you will, okay? The first part starts with design considerations. So out of the 10, the first 4 I'm going to talk about are related to design. And so first thing is, whenever possible, reduce the number of marks in the view. Add only the fields that you need. And this is something that we teach in the visual analytics class in general, because there is a tendency to try to put everything in one view, give everything all at once to the audience. And we talk about it being sort of like the Cheesecake Factory effect, where your menu there's so many options that they're overwhelmed, and it impedes them from being able to focus on the particular information that you want. So reduce the number of marks whenever possible, and keep it simple. Allow your users to incrementally drill down to details. We call this guided analysis. What happens a lot of times is folks will give them all the information on the visualization at once, and then expect them to use combinations of filters to drill down to the detail that they want. Sometimes what you may need to do is parse that up into multiple dashboards. So for example, if I'm trying to provide information related to products, that may be one dashboard. And then that dashboard is actually connected to another dashboard that drills down into detail about customers. So again, rather than jamming all of that all together on one dashboard, I'm actually breaking it up into two. Again, keeping in line with that guideline to try to keep it as simple as possible. In addition to that, this has to do again with the content of your visualization. Strings and dates tend to be slow when Tableau has to process them. Numbers and Booleans are faster when it's actually performing those types of calculations. So whenever possible, you saw in the example earlier where Chris was converting numbers into strings and then reconverting them back into integers. And that is because of the fact that numbers and Booleans tend to run faster. So performance-wise, we're going to see an increase when we make those kinds of modifications. And then lastly, the cleaner that your data is, and we talk about this in the classes as well, the cleaner your data is to begin with, and the better that it matches whatever questions that you're asking your audience to answer by looking at the data or the tasks that you're providing them, the faster your workbooks will run. So really what this goes back to is prepping your data, right? So if you have deduped your data, you've cleaned it, you've cleaned up the model, you've renamed things so that naming conventions are very clear for the audience, this is going to make things much easier in general. Does that make sense so far, Jessica?
Yes, I'm taking notes.
Excellent. Okay. The next set of considerations really have more to do with the data. And we started talking about data already. Like we said, with the cleaner that the data is, the better. When we talk about data considerations, I already said that, cleaning your data is, only connect to the data that you need for analysis, right? So again, connecting to the entire customer database may be unnecessary if all I'm interested in doing is analyzing the North American region, right? So whenever possible, limit the data. And one of the ways that you can do that, which is recommended by Tableau, is to use an extract. Right. And then, of course, there's all kinds of additional advantages to using an extract. If you have a Tableau server and a data management module, there's all additional things. And by the way, I'm going to cite my sources at the end for your reference, so you can go and take a look at these because there are additional recommendations. These are just the things that I highlighted out of those articles. In addition, avoid using custom SQL. It's similar to what we were seeing in terms of performance. That's an added layer of complexity that Tableau needs to negotiate in order for your audience to be able to get to what you want them to see in the visualization. So if possible, avoid custom SQL. You can accomplish a lot of those things by cleaning up the data, again, prepping the data before you actually connect it to Tableau Desktop.
Let me say something on that one. So
Yeah.
custom SQL, I definitely agree. Definitely want to avoid that if you can. But if you're using an extract, it doesn't matter. It's just going to make the pull of the data slower, because when you're writing custom SQL, you're basically telling Tableau that you know how to write the SQL that it needs, but better than it does. And you end up with this thing called like a joined culling. It's just better just to not do it. But if it's a live connection, that will definitely bring things to a halt. But if you're using extract, it kind of doesn't really matter.
Excellent. Thanks, Chris. And then also index your tables. If you're using a relational database that you're connecting to, indexing those tables is just going to organize it. It's going to make it much more efficient. So when Tableau is running that query against the data source, it's going to be much more efficient than if you haven't indexed that table recently. Okay. And then if it's, oh, and I can see here that my slides got messed up a little bit. So this last data point is talking about if it's slow in the data source, it's going to be slow in Tableau Desktop. And if it's slow in Tableau Desktop, if you're publishing to Tableau Server, it's going to be slow there as well. So in general, all these things that we're talking about mitigating performance to help it be more efficient, all these things combined. But in general, if you're noticing that it's slow in Tableau Desktop, it is most definitely going to be slow. Almost always, I shouldn't say most definitely, but almost always it's going to be slower on Tableau Server. And then the 10th point, oh, there's my second part. The 10th point really is an overall consideration to take into account when publishing, which is that there is no silver bullet. And this goes back to what I started with. What works in one situation may not work in another. So you may have, excuse me, you may have a published workbook that is working for a particular client. You have another client who is asking for the exact same visualizations. It's just a different data set. And then their audience is slightly different, or the context in which they're analyzing data is slightly different. So everything that you thought was working well, all cylinders firing correctly the way that you wanted it to in that first client's instance may not be applicable for the second. And so why we say that is because refining your workbook is going to be dependent on a number of things: context, data, the analysis that you're doing, the design of the workbook itself. And that's where testing and iterating is necessary. When we talk about this in the visual analytics classes, we talk about it being an iterative process. And even for the same client, oftentimes we find at Boulder Insight, we find that a dashboard we developed for a client last year may need to be improved upon because, again, not only has the data changed, but maybe the context, the audience, the analysis that we're interested in. And so we iterate always anyway. Okay. The sources, I'll have these listed out. So these are different articles that are on tableau.com in their knowledge base. I will, in fact, include these. Well, one, they'll be in the recording, so you'll have access to the replay of this session. But we'll also send that out in the email notification that sends out the link. I'll make sure that these sources are cited as well. Okay. Hopefully that.
I'll ask one more thing. Did you put? I can't remember in the first one. Did you have actions versus filters as kind of a whole performance?
I did not. No, I didn't bring that up. Go ahead, Chris.
That one's really important. So very often we kind of fall into this trap of using like a Tableau like it's Excel, and it's just not Excel, right? And I totally get that your users know how to use drop down filters, and I've seen dashboards that have like 10 or actually more on there. The problem is that if you ever watch your views load after you change a filter or something, and you see them like one in the bottom will render and the next one renders and whatever else. So how it works is for every filter, it has to calculate every possible option for every single dropdown. So if you got a really long dropdown, even if you don't change it, but you have it on the page, every time it renders, it has to go graph by graph, filter by filter, and then actually like line by line. So having a lot of filters really makes things slow. When you're using actions, it doesn't have to do any of that processing because it says, oh, I'm just going to give you everything until you ask for something. So it doesn't do that piece. So those are really big. And plus, it also makes it better because the one big problem with filters is they're always alphabetical, right? So if I need to know, well, I mean, so often the argument I hear from most people is like, oh, well, all of my users know what they're looking for. This is a dashboard to get them to what they need at that point in time. Well, even if I was to filter down to the S's, let's say, but I don't have any context of are the S's at the top of my chart or at the bottom of the chart, right? Because it's just going to be alphabetical. I would have to click on the S, memorize the data, then click on the T's, and then memorize that data, and then in my head know whether it was higher or actually lower. And I have to go through all those to be able to just to tell you what you can quickly do in just one graph. So very often we use so we try not to use any actually drop down filters at all. Just use actions.
Does that make sense, Jessica? Or
It makes sense. I never thought about it that way. I'm very guilty of using a lot of drop-down filters, so I'll have to explore that.
Yeah, we can show you. I mean, there's a lot of things. John, do you have the have the CHF dashboard handy, or I can pull it up if not. I was just going to show you
Yeah,
that one. That's a good kind of example.
perfect. I don't have it handy at the moment.
Yeah, I have it right here. Let
Okay,
me share.
perfect. I'll
I'll
here.
just I'll show you. So this is one that we do like every year for this company. This is like a survey data, and I can send you this link too. So good news is actually public facing. But let me hop into one. I can just go from here. I'll just go one of these. So in here we don't have any filters, right? So you could filter on all these, but this is just much better. So you don't have to make them big. You can make them small, but now I can. But now the whole point is that if I had a filter for male and female, I wouldn't know what a percentage that they were. I wouldn't know that I have more males in my like a MENA group, you know. So this is why it's important, because all this would just be alphabetical. You wouldn't really know. Does that make sense?
Yes, this is very helpful and very, very cool, very beautiful. Thank you for showing me.
Excellent. All right. So let me go back to the view here. So again, as I mentioned, I'll make sure that those articles that were cited are in the email that you receive with the update on the replay. We'll make sure to share that. Lastly, as we're closing out here in the last few minutes, we wanted to open it up if there were any specific questions that may have arisen while we were going through the topics. Anything else? If we don't have time to address it now, we can always follow up with you, or we can have you tune in the next session and we can address it then. Are there any specific questions or topics that you'd like to address at the moment? Okay. For those of you that did submit questions, of course, we're going to follow up with those as well and make sure that those are included in the follow-up email. Just to wrap up, I mentioned that when you register for the Tableau live session, there is a form that allows you to submit a question. We also have this questions queue that's set up, and we'll put that into the chat for you. It's simply boulderinsight.com/questions. You can submit questions here at any time, and we will use these either for topics for the next Tableau live session. But as I said, we don't necessarily have to wait until that. You could potentially get a response on that question beforehand. If it's something that we can answer for you quickly, you'll probably get that sooner than later. However, if you have an urgent question, you can go to our website, and Chris actually has a Calendly link to schedule some time. And there's an opportunity for you to be able to schedule a quick one-on-one session related to a specific question that you might have. That's also available off of boulderinsight.com. And then each month, when we have submissions, you're eligible to win a 30-minute one-on-one coaching session with us. Since there were those questions, we hadn't yet done the drawing, but for those submissions, we'll notify you for those who won that particular session. And then, as I mentioned, the recordings of these will be sent out to everyone who's registered for the course. So for future reference, if for whatever reason you register for the next month's session and you can't make it for whatever reason, we still recommend that you register, because then we can forward the replay of the session to you because you registered for that session.
And that dashboard I just showed, I put in the chat if you want to go to that and check it out.
Okay. In fact, let me also put in all the links that I mentioned. So first, the questions queue. That's in there. And then obviously boulderinsight.com is the website where you can schedule some time if you need urgent support for any particular questions. Okay, we still have a few minutes. I was going to open that up still. Our next session is on October 11th, but it might be easier to just give you back 7 minutes of your life instead of sitting on the call with us. So please register for the October 11th session if you're interested in attending. Of course, thank you for attending today, and especially for those of you who submitted questions. This is exactly what the session is for. So if you yourself, your colleagues have questions related in this manner, there might be something that a challenge you're experiencing. That is exactly what these sessions are for and why we're making them available. So thank you so much for attending, and we'll see you in the next session on October 11th.
Actually, if anybody's still hanging on, I got one thing I could show you that is kind of new to me. I'm going to show this real quick since we're here. This is something that I'm not sure what version it came out in, but there's a way now to tie these images. So if you have images in like a kind of a URL string, I'm trying to figure out how to do this. There's another data type. So like, for example, if you had in your data set, if you had like customer name, or like, you have the call center and you had like people's photos that you want to see who they are. If you have a URL that has that photo on it and you pull that into your data set, let's just say that this customer name was my URL. You can right click it and you can change it to what's called like image role. And that's going to look for a whole URL here. Now, granted, this one isn't it, but that's a new feature. That way, I just pull that into my data set, and if that was actually a URL, then it would actually render that photo. So that's kind of a cool thing to use. We're kind of in the process of doing some HR dashboards, and we're going to do that exact same thing with it. But just wanted to show that because it was kind of a new feature. So
awesome.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Excellent. Thanks, folks. Have a great rest of your day, and we'll see you next month.
All right. Bye-bye.